Scrapper is one of the two classes that got me excited for Lost Ark all these years ago when the first trailer for the game came out. The other one is Arcanist. So when the first beta went live, I tried my hand at Arcanist, and for the second one I tried out Scrapper. Both were fun, but I leaned more towards Arcanist, so that is what I played when the game first officially released back in Korea. Fast forward a couple of years to the release of the Western version, and there was no Arcanist in the starting lineup, so I had to pick something else. Now we did get some classes that I hadn't played in the other regions before, so it was a tough choice between Scrapper, Striker, and what would eventually end up becoming my first pick, Sorceress. While I might not have picked Scrapper as my main to start off the game with, she's never been far behind in terms of item level or power, I guess you could say. Currently, my Scrapper is sitting at 1445, she's got a few pieces of relic armor, 4 engravings and full level 5 gems, which I'm working on getting those to level 7 in the next few weeks. So she's doing pretty alright for herself, and there have certainly been times where I was tempted to main swap to Scrapper, as Sorceress definitely has had some moments where I just wasn't really feeling it, and I've never had any moments like that with Scrapper. So today I just wanted to take some time to talk about the class, why I think she's a lot of fun to play, why I think she's a great class from a performance standpoint, and maybe I can get some of you interested to try out the class as well by the end of the video. So as with most classes in the game, there are two main playstyles to choose from, Taijutsu and Shock Training, yellow or green, fast or slow. Regardless of which of these two you choose, you will still be incorporating both skill types into your final build, as you need to be able to balance your identity gauge. But depending on the class engraving that you choose, you will be leaning more towards one skill type. I personally haven't played around much with Shock Training, so I'll mostly be talking about Scrapper from a Taijutsu standpoint. Now, Scrapper itself has a lot of good things going for herself. She's pretty easy to pick up and play. She used to be a bit more clunky a little while ago, but ever since the class balance patch hit, Scrapper has been a much more smooth experience. Your main job is to keep your synergy debuff applied to the boss, and then you just do damage, and there's also very little setup required for you to do your damage. Being a martial artist, Scrapper is also a fairly tanky class, and taking less damage is always nice. Her own damage output is currently really strong as well, so much so that the shock skills are most likely going to get a nerf in PvE in the upcoming balance patch, although that's still subject to change, but on the PTR she's getting a slight nerf on her shock skills. She also has great stagger and weak point damage, and she's also very mobile, both from the skills that she has available to her as well as her ability to dash twice in quick succession. You don't need to use both dashes back to back. If you only use one, your dash comes back faster, and if you dash twice, then it goes on a longer cooldown. But it's still a nice option to have if you were to need it. And in the build that I'm currently playing, I also have 2.5 movement skills. I say 2.5 because the last one, while it technically does move you forward, you want to use it as close to the boss as possible, as you otherwise would miss out on the first few hits hitting the boss. But if you want to use it as a gap closer, then the option is there. I guess that is the one downside to Scrapper, the fact that you have to get real close to the boss to deal your damage. I've played a fair amount of melee classes in Lost Ark now, but I don't think there is any other class that needs to get as close as Scrapper does to hit most of her skills. I know that Gunlance needs to get close to the boss for their shield bash, but that's just the one skill. I think in my current build there are like 3 or 4 skills that require me to almost be hugging the boss. But once you're used to sticking onto the boss, it's certainly not an issue, especially because you also have plenty of skills that move you slightly forward. But it's something to be wary of when you use that one skill that does push you back a little bit, as that might be enough for your next skill to be out of range when you use it, and you don't want to be punching the air. In terms of feeling, she feels pretty good right out of the gate. While extra stats make her feel better, like with any other class, she isn't really super reliant on getting high amounts of stats to feel good like some other classes do. For Shock Training it might be a bit different as it's a spec based build, but for Taijutsu you don't really need much for it to feel good. Your relic set will also not really affect your gameplay much, as you will most likely go for entropy, and that just provides a lot of damage. There are different options to choose from though in terms of what stats that you want to go for. Again, when we're talking about Taijutsu and not Shock Training. But you can go for a high crit build with little swiftness, you can go the complete opposite direction where you go high swiftness with low crit, but I went with the middle down the road option of 50-50 crit and swiftness. The reason why we don't go spec, in the case of Taijutsu that is, it doesn't make good use of it. Even with the 50-50 crit swift option that I went for, my crit rate is high enough to be able to run things like Keen Blunt even without the need of a crit synergy in the party, and with the extra swiftness my cooldowns are that little bit more fluent than they otherwise would be, but different stat choices open up different options. If you go high crit, you could go Keen Blunt without needing adrenaline, but you probably want higher level cooldown gems. If you go high swiftness, you could go something like Raid Captain, but it just all depends on what you want to run. 50-50 build feels good to me as it enables me to run the engravings that I want to run, and with a few higher level cooldown gems I feel like the rotation would flow really smoothly. And it also just feels good to play, even without having a yearning support in the party, because I imagine that if I did go for the full crit build, I would probably enjoy having a yearning support a whole lot more. But it's nice to have different options to choose from, so you can pick what feels best to you. All in all, Scrapper is just a great job. You're tanky, your damage is good, it's not that hard to play, you're mobile and you have plenty of build options to choose from, and you also provide good weak point and stagger damage, which is always valuable to the party as well. And of course, it's just really fun to play. So for me, Scrapper really does it all, and she will most likely remain as my most geared alt for a long time to come. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. So if you've played Scrapper before, then let me know how you feel about the class down below. And with that, I want to thank you for watching, I want to thank my patrons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.